In Consumer Corner, we take a look at trends and products creating a buzz here in China. On today's show, we're talking about the ways taxi drivers can extort passengers for illegal fares. Recently, Chinese media has run a series of articles and exposés on the chaos in Beijing's taxi industry. Beijingers are familiar with long lines when waiting for a taxi at transportation hubs, and things often only get worse once they've gotten inside the cab. While the biggest complaint about taxis used to be some drivers refusing to pick up customers, recently Chinese media has detailed another serious problem related to taxi fares. The Beijing News carried out an investigation in areas with a reputation as breeding grounds for taxi drivers extorting customers. These are railway stations, subway stations, and busy commercial streets. At these places, drivers often park their vehicles and wait for customers to come to them. The shortage of cabs in these places means that customers are in no position to demand a driver uses the meter, and the bargaining is completely one-sided. China Central Television, or CCTV, went undercover to catch drivers in the act, finding prices charged were often 4 times the legal amount on a meter. One passenger was charged 100 yuan or $16 for a journey shorter than 9 kilometers from Beijing West Railway Station to Wangfujing. If charged based on the value displayed on the meter, the ride would just cost 1/4 of that, about 25 yuan. Other price extortions are specifically targeted at outsiders unfamiliar with city taxi regulations. Often drivers will demand more than meter value on the pretext of offsetting tolls or extra fuel consumption caused by traffic jams. No matter which way taxi drivers choose to maximize their earnings, ordinary people have become easy targets of such scams. Given professional and legal consequences for such practices, why do taxi drivers dare to brazenly rip off cab riders in the capital? The most obvious reason is the profound imbalance between demand and supply for cabs. A report recently published by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences showed Beijing dropped to 28th in the ranking of 38 Chinese cities in terms of the ease of hailing a cab. The Beijing News quotes an official from the Beijing Municipal Commission of Transportation as saying the total number of taxis on Beijing roads has not significantly expanded since the 1990s. Making matters worse is the alignment of incentives for cab drivers. Cabs calculate fares based on both distance traveled and time spent stopped. But the fare accumulated in traffic jams is very low, in fact low enough that many drivers claim they're actually losing money based on the gas burned. This means that many drivers choose to change shifts during the city's rush hour, leaving fewer cabs on the road when people need them most. Those that remain on the road during these hours are often those that refuse to use the meter in driving toward major traffic areas. For them, earnings from a trip with the meter simply aren't worth the time and gas. Growing complaints about the taxi situation appear to have fallen on deaf ears with taxi companies. Individual complaints can be directed at drivers using an identification number, but companies have disavowed responsibility for the highly publicized taxi exposés by saying the drivers are not licensed employees of their company. City transit authorities say that fines can be imposed on such activities, but responses to specific complaints or queries have been vague. Many netizens have taken to the web to share their experiences and vent about taxi troubles. One user complained about a reversal of roles in what should be a service industry. Quote, "When hailing a taxi these days, I'm shy about saying where I want to go. Instead, I have to ask, 'Excuse me, sir, where are you headed?' Then before you get in the cab, you've got to ask clearly how much it's going to cost." Some posters blamed incompetent management from city officials. Poster Qing Shixiang wrote, "I heard on the news that the traffic department isn't going to increase the number of cabs because they say the current vacancy rate is 30 to 40%. Haven't you seen us customers getting persecuted by unlicensed cabs? And now even licensed cabs want to stick their finger in the pie of illegal profits? Do they take us for masochists?" One poster took the Beijing public transportation system to task for pushing commuters into taking cabs. User Siwawa wrote, "Consumers sometimes have no choice but to deal with the high cost of these kinds of taxis. In Beijing, buses and subways can't handle traffic at peak hours, even when people squeeze in them like sardines in a can. Let's not even talk about the inconvenience of going to places not on the routes. When we're in a rush, we've got no choice but to go out there and try to hail a taxi." Beijing's commuters may be getting some relief soon. This coming Sunday, the city is set to open 2 highly anticipated subway lines that add extensive coverage to the city's network. Looking ahead to the new lines, Beijingers can be sure of a few things. The lines will be packed at rush hour, and there will probably be plenty of taxi drivers milling about the exits of popular stops.